Hello, everyone, and welcome to the keynote interview that we're going to do as the first part of this packed programme today on the future of sterling as a green bond market. I'm delighted today that we're joined by John Glenn, who is a member of the UK government and is the Economics Secretary to the Treasury, as well as the City Minister. John, I think you are the longest serving Economics Secretary to the Treasury in history since the post was created in 1947. Congratulations on that. I'm sure you've had a very busy time in that role with COVID, but we're here to talk about some very positive things that have come out of the first green bond today. So obviously the background here is that the UK issued its first green gilt about a month ago. It was a huge success. In a moment, I'm going to start asking John a few questions about what the program means and where it will go from here and the impact that it's made. But I thought to start with, it would be great to hear from John a little bit about the genesis of the program, what it's trying to achieve. It's clearly a central plank of the government's economic and environmental agenda, launched and announced by Rishi Sunak, the UK Chancellor. It's made a great impact early on, but I know there are big plans for the future with this. So, John, over to you to talk a little bit about the program and where you think it will go next.
Well, thank you very much for that kind introduction, Clive, and thank you for convening what looks to be an excellent event on the sterling green bond market. And as you've indicated, it certainly comes at an exciting time. And last month, as you said, we kicked off our green financing programme by issuing the UK's inaugural green gilt. And it did set records for its size and the investor demand that was generated. This month, October, we have a second issuance, and that's continuing our work to build out that green yield curve. And later in the year, NS&I are launching the retail green savings bonds, and next month is, of course, COP26. So I think with so much going on, this event provides a timely opportunity to reflect on the progress that we've made and to discuss what I'm confident is a bright future for the sterling green market. So I know that today's discussions are going to be fascinating. I want to thank OMFIF for gathering such a distinguished array of experts, including those that are driving the government's own green financing and biodiversity work. As part of my own contribution to those discussions, I'm going to spend a few minutes, if I may, explaining how those three elements, green gilts, retail savings bonds, and COP26 can and will work in concert to push forward our green agenda locally and indeed globally. So first, let me turn to the green gilt and describe last month's issuance as a success would, I think, be selling it a little short. This is the largest ever sovereign green bond issuance, the largest ever order book for a sovereign green bond, and the largest ever greenium for inaugural offering. Now, I've been keen, as many of you will know, to make this green gilt a reality for a long time. And as the minister responsible for both green finance and our gilt programme, I've been closely involved over my nearly 4 years in office in its development. But it is also something we'd never done before. So we had to choose exactly the right moment and exactly the right approach to make sure we'd succeed. So I hope you'll agree that we chose wisely, and I recognise that some of you were keen for it to happen sooner, but I hope we've executed it well now we have done it. Now, if we look at the public response to the green gilt, I think it says three things. First, investors continue to prize the gilt as a gold standard asset. They trust the UK's debt management strategy and know that this deep liquid asset will enhance their portfolios. And I think that's evident in the way that they placed over £1 billion in orders in a matter of minutes. The second thing I'd say is that the potential of green capital markets is even greater than we thought. Over £1 trillion held in sustainable debt, over £100 billion in sovereign green bonds, and still our issuance saw the highest demand ever. And we will continue to harness this potential with our green gilt issuance as we fulfil the Chancellor's commitment to issue at least £15 billion in this financial year. But it's also a valuable signal to corporate issuers. There are serious financial and strategic wins waiting for you if you choose to go green. And then the third thing I'd say, as I think this extraordinary response shows just how strongly investors support the green agenda that's set out in our green financing framework. So I think this support is a fantastic start, which we intend to build on. And later this year, as I mentioned, NS and I will launch the world's first retail sovereign green bonds, their green savings bonds. And I think that will introduce a new cohort of investors to our framework. And for the first time ever, give the public directly the opportunity to invest in the government's green agenda. And we'll report the impact of these investments to both retail and corporate investors alike in exactly the same way, meaning that they'll be able to see the positive impact that they can have when they invest in the green economy. So what impact is that exactly? Well, our framework sets out a ruthlessly simple agenda: cut emissions, promote biodiversity, and create those green jobs across the United Kingdom. And the Green Financing Programme supports the transition to net zero by financing government expenditures across clean transportation, renewable energy, pollution reduction, to name just a few examples. And investments such as EV charging infrastructure and the Renewable Heat Incentive Scheme will keep us on track to meet our world-leading climate targets. And we will then report the impact of these expenditures to show investors the progress we're making in addressing climate change. That's the cutting emissions bit. And the second element, as I say, is promoting biodiversity. And Professor Dasgupta's landmark review made the value of biodiversity clear for all to see, which is why we've incorporated his recommendations by including a standalone category of spending in our framework: living and natural resources. And investments in this category, such as the £640 million Nature for Climate Fund, are set to benefit both our wildlife and our climate. So putting both net zero and biodiversity at the heart of our framework shows how integral they are to this government's decision making. And the final element of the agenda is creating green jobs across the country. And crucially, that drive to net zero is much about building a nationwide green economy as it is about cutting emissions. Some of this is achieved directly through government investment. Green projects create green jobs. And to demonstrate this, we've committed to another world first for comparable sovereigns to reporting on the social co-benefits of the Green Financing Programme. And this will include the number of jobs supported by the programme, as well as other benefits such as access to affordable infrastructure. Beyond direct investments, we're also growing the green economy by enhancing the UK's position as the world's leading centre for green finance, which takes me back to the green gilt. £15 billion will be an incredible boost for the sterling green bond market, while the success of our inaugural transaction proves the value of issuing in sterling and operating in the UK. As the City Minister, I very much understand the extent to which financial services contribute to the well-being of households around the world in many different ways, making the sector more competitive, more innovative, and yes, more green. And that will power sustainable growth, benefiting us all. But this work isn't just a national phenomenon, it is global. Innovative financial services are going to be crucial if we're going to win the fight against climate change. Meeting our Paris goals will require unprecedented changes to global financial flows and the mobilization of the full might of private finance. Public spending is important, but it won't be enough on its own. So the third day of COP26 next month is entirely devoted to finance for the very first time. And part of the strategy is to establish markets to mobilize private capital. Issuing sovereign green debt helps. It sets standards, builds out a green curve, and demonstrates the financial and strategic benefits to issuers. Issuing high-quality green bonds will help other sovereigns ignite their green markets. Another part of the strategy is to ensure that every professional financial decision takes climate change into account. And this will require industry to provide high-quality disclosures in line with the recommendations of the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures. It also requires a framework which will allow the financial sector to allocate capital, to manage risks, and seize opportunities in the transition to net zero. This is a framework that the COP26 private finance agenda, led by Mark Carney, is working to create. So I hope you agree with me that we are really now on the verge of something exciting here. Getting this right will allow us to turn billions of pounds of public commitments into trillions of pounds of public and private climate investment. So this is an exciting time for green finance, but it's more than just a moment. I hope I've placed what we're doing in that wider context, from the role that green financing plays in meeting our environmental targets, to the shift it supports towards a green economy, to our international ambitions for green finance at COP26. I hope it's given you a springboard for this afternoon's discussions, which, if you'll forgive the extended metaphor, will dive deeper into some of these topics. So I'll pause and leave it there. Thank you very much for listening, and good luck.
Thank you very much for those comments, John, and thanks for framing this in the broader picture. What you say in terms of how sovereigns can push this agenda forward is very important. What the role that the bond market can play, the opportunities that future issuers will have to come to the green sterling market, but also other green markets as well, and promote the sustainability agenda. But let's just focus back on the Green Gilt program itself for a second. You mentioned the success of the first deal. What's next? You mentioned the retail issue. There's already, I think, a clamour amongst some investors for other types of green, sustainable products from the UK. How do you see the next evolution of this?
Well, we've got to look very carefully at that. I mean, obviously, this was a fantastic start to the programme. And I think it's a huge vote of confidence in the work of Sir Robert Steetham, the CEO of the Debt Management Office, who noted that demand came from ESG-focused accounts as well as new investors in that gilt market. I think it says something about the confidence that exists in the rigour and the innovation of the UK's green financing programme. It's been recognised now by experts, and they're following through on that. So we'll see, but we've got the second issuance happening this month, as well as any future offerings we bring to the market. I'm looking forward to that NS&I Green Savings Bond. I'm excited to see what the public's reaction will be. I mean, this is a whole new direction in sovereign green financing, but I think it's coming at the right time given the context that I spoke about. Because public awareness of these green issues and their desire to be involved is higher than ever. I see that across my own constituency, but across the country as well. So we saw that strong interest in June when we published our green financing framework. So I'm expecting this to be an exciting time. In terms of more specifics, forgive me, these things are always under review in the Treasury, and we'll make new announcements in due course. But I think we're set well for the immediate future, and we look forward, to the medium term as well.
Okay, John, and we all look forward to seeing how the second deal goes, and obviously that retail bond as well, which will be of interest to UK citizens like myself. Biodiversity is a big part of the programme. People calling this bond a green plus bond. Why biodiversity, and what impact do you hope that this incorporation of biodiversity will have, not just on the green sterling market, but the green market more generally?
Well, I did mention, thank you. Yes, I did mention Professor Dasgupta's report into the economics of biodiversity. And I believe you'll hear later this afternoon from the professor. We published a full response to that review in July this year, and that covered a commitment as well to work with the ONS to improve the way that nature is incorporated into our national accounts. And we also committed to improve government guidance on embedding environmental considerations into the policy-making process more generally. But beyond that review, the upcoming Environment Bill will commit the government to set to targets for net gains in biodiversity, waste and resource use, and also water quality. And that's targets to reduce 5 key air pollutants that are already legally binding. We've also announced targets to protect 30% of our land and ocean by 2030. So the spending review increased DEFRA's budgets by almost £1 billion. And some of that money, a lot of that money, will be supporting that habitat creation, investment in national parks, peatland restoration and tree planting, in line with the Climate Change Committee's recommendations. So obviously there's a lot more detail in those initiatives and the long-term agenda, but that's to be found in the 25-year environment plan. So what we're trying to do is put some coherence, make it as comprehensive as possible, and actually give some clarity on how we're going to measure and involve across Whitehall the focus in decision-making on these vital areas.
Thanks, John. And certainly from our experience, everybody involved in the green market globally is looking very much at how you've incorporated biodiversity into the taxonomy and into the reporting. We've very deliberately called today the future of the green sterling market rather than the green gilt market, because this isn't just about what the government's doing, it's about other things as well, as you alluded to earlier. Clearly, the hope here is that the green sterling market becomes the world-leading green market, that corporates, not just from the UK, but maybe elsewhere, and other issuers around the world see green sterling as a market of choice. Can you talk us a little bit through about how you would like to see that develop?
Yes, I mean, this is part of our effort directly to leverage private capital to multiply the effect of the public investment. And I think issuing this sovereign green debt does a number of things. It sets that gold standard for green issuances. And I mentioned the framework, our 2 external reviews, including the innovative pre-issuance impact assessment from the Carbon Trust. And our commitments on reporting all set those standards for our corporates to be aware of and to follow. And they know what that high quality program looks like. I think the second thing I'd say is that issuing a green gilt sets that pricing benchmark as well for corporate issuers. And building out that green curve will allow corporates to accurately price their sterling debt, encouraging further issuance. And that, I think, moves us into a more mature, mainstream green capital market, if you like. And then finally, I mentioned our record greenium, and that shows corporates that there is a financial incentive to green issuance. The benefits for businesses are already there, and they need to do what they need to do is to pick them, to take the opportunity. And I hope that that's what we've helped move people towards.
Obviously, the UK wasn't the first to issue. Some people think that you were a little bit late to issue. But you've been through the whole process now. You've got COP26 coming up. You'll be meeting fellow finance ministers and treasury officials from around the world. What's your message to those sovereign issuers who, maybe a little bit like the UK, were considering whether to come to the green bond market now that you've actually come to the green bond market?
Well, I mean, I was involved in conversations with Philip Hammond when I was working under him well before the last election. And obviously, there were a number of factors that were inhibiting that development. But this issuance has been a huge boost for the UK and the government's green work. We're keen to see others benefit from high quality programs. We've seen quite a number of other countries express interest in issuing green debt. But as you say, they're all at slightly different stages in the development. And I think Canada, for example, is set to issue their first bond next year, and others are at that exploratory stage. And each country will have particular strengths, unique challenges, and that will be based on the makeup of their economies, governments, different political pressures. So we are very happy to take the opportunity to talk to anyone who currently issues or is considering issuing green debt. And I hope that our recent up-to-date experience will be of benefit to all. We're very pleased with where this has started, and we want to continue to work with others to make it a wider success story.
Great. Well, listen, thank you, John. Good luck with COP26. Good luck with the evolution of this program, and we'll certainly hear follow the evolution very closely. There are a number of issuers listening in today who will be considering whether they want to come to the market, and I'm sure they'll listen carefully to what we have to say. But thanks for your time with us. In a moment, I will be back to chair the first panel, which is on the future of the green sterling market. But for now, John, thanks very much. See you soon.
Thank you very much, Clive.